Armed Forces provides amazing training.
I think about veterans as people who have already figured out how to serve.
My military skills have been essential.
Hiring veterans is a great business case. They're the best employees we have. They're flexible, hardworking, and they're used to a global workplace.
If that isn't an asset to any company, I don't know what is.
Hiring America, the award-winning television job fair for American veterans. Connecting you with companies who know your value. Learn about employers who are actively hiring today and organizations that support veterans. Your future success starts right here on Hiring America.
Welcome to Hiring America, the television series that helps military veterans find jobs and transition into meaningful careers. I'm Lauren Wanko. Today we're talking with HR professionals who are making a strong impact on the military community. You'll meet hiring managers, veterans, and learn helpful tips about your transition. Log on to our website, hiringamerica.net, for more information. And don't forget to connect with us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. We're here at the Society for Human Resource Management Annual Conference and Exposition in Washington, D.C., with a group of HR professionals who will be engaging with conference attendees, sharing social strategies and solutions for personal and professional use. We're joined by Dr. Woodward, an organizational psychologist, Renee Robson, an HR professional from Australia, and Carol McDaniel, Director of Talent Acquisition at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's great to be here.
What advice would you give to a member of the military that's in the process of transitioning but isn't sure what career to pursue in the civilian workforce?
It's like anything, you got to do your homework, right? You got to step back and think about what you've done in the past that you really enjoyed and what can you do moving forward in the civilian world that you can match up your skills and your passions with. And there are so many different things out there that it's a matter of kind of honing in on some of those that you really are most passionate about and finding those industries and those jobs that maybe will allow you to continue to flourish.
Carol, tell us about your military experience and what the transition was like for you.
So I had the fortunate opportunity to serve 10 years in the United States Air Force, and I really enjoyed my time there. And I was coming from a time when I wasn't in a war zone, I didn't come from a combat area, just kind of a regular girl transitioning out of the military. What I hoped to be an easy transition really turned out to be somewhat difficult. The perception of military members, female or male, coming out of the military was one that not very flexible, a little rigid, couldn't necessarily assimilate as we should. I was scrutinized for what I knew or what I didn't know about the civilian sector, and ultimately at the end of the interview they didn't want to select me for the position because they felt like I wouldn't be able to assimilate to the civilian, workforce. After some back and forth and going to him and saying, gosh, I've lived in third world countries, I've been shot at, I've shot people, how is it that I can't be very flexible? Ultimately, they called me back and said, you might be a better fit than we thought, so we'd love to have you join our company. But I'll tell you, since then, it has really been my mission to help veterans make an easier transition, and those who especially have a more difficult time than I did when I transitioned many years back.
Look, the reality is, in a war zone, right, in any kind of military, even in training, you have to do everything. You become an entrepreneur. I mean, and even in some cases, when you're in a third world country, you have to completely adapt to a new way of living, a new way of life. And in companies, all they talk about today is being innovative, ideas, growth. That's the world the military lives in, right?
So can a veteran job seeker pick up the phone without an interview lined up and say, I would love to come to your company and shadow for a day?
I've been working with some groups locally who are open to that because they want to understand that person and they want them to understand how their organization works.
I think being open to the fact that people are willing to help, and if you put yourself out there and you say, hey, look, I'm not asking you for a job, I'm not asking you to give me anything, can I buy you a coffee and spend half an hour and hear about your job and what the norms are and what you do, people are more than willing to do that, I find.
So after the veteran job seeker has landed the interview, what's the next step? Dun, dun, the interview.
The dirty little secret is that most interviewers, hiring managers conducting interviews, are really bad at doing interviews. Most aren't trained for it, they rarely do any prep, they might not even know about it until maybe a half hour ahead of time. So use this opportunity to own the interview. It's your interview, so you drive it. Know a strong set of talking points that you could fall back on, because the interviewers are going to ask some weird, wacky questions that make no sense. You've got to be ready to take that and kind of pivot with it and say, all right, how do I tell my narrative? How do I answer that question but weave in the story I want to tell about myself? And I think that's the most important thing to prep before going into an interview.
Once you've landed the job, after you pass the interview, how do you ensure that it's a comfortable, smooth transition for both parties?
The onboarding process is really important. And again, this is another place where most companies drop the ball. So it's got to be on you to really figure out, how do you onboard yourself? And by that I mean, all right, figure out who do you talk to in the organization. I'm always a big fan of do a listening tour. Spend time asking questions and listening to what they do, how they operate, to get a sense of where you fit in and where you add value before you start telling and kind of showcasing your skills. Hear everyone out first so you don't overwhelm them or assert yourself in the wrong place.
I think another good point is we have made a commitment to providing mentors to help bring veterans into the organization. So at Johns Hopkins, for example, all the employees that are currently veterans today, and I'm being one of them, we partner with incoming and onboarding veterans to help them understand, not just how the business gets done, but how to make it easier for them. I think that's really important.
Take it upon yourself to find someone that can be a mentor that's maybe in the same industry but not at the same company. So you can flat out ask them, hey, is this normal? These people talking about things that, is acceptable, or what should I do here? And that they can give you an honest answer, and it's not going to then reflect on your relationships in the workplace.
And Carol, is there also a benefit for veteran employees to be able to connect with veteran employees on the job as well?
Oh my gosh, tremendous benefit to the employee. And in my world, not only is recruitment very important, but retention is important, because the last thing you want to do is spend all the time onboarding and bringing someone into the organization only to have them be not happy because they don't have a mentor, they don't have a friend at work, so to speak. So definitely very, very important.
There was a great book called Never Eat Alone, and I'm a big believer in that. Never go to lunch alone, never get coffee in the morning alone. Make sure you're spending time, grab somebody so you can get that downtime to have conversations and learn sort of the language of the company, because it's just so valuable to take that time and to get a feel for them. And remember, most relationships at work are very transactional. You need something, you go to someone, they need something, they come to you. So take time where you don't need something from someone. You can just talk. I think it's a good way to kind of get yourself settled in.
And I would say, as a former veteran and a former military member that transitioned, be very confident. You are extremely educated, extremely talented. You have so much value to bring to an organization. Don't diminish that. Don't be nervous, don't be shy to sell yourself. That's the hardest thing people do that are not transitioning from the military. You've got to be confident in who you are and what you bring to the organization. And you will interview them as much as they will interview you, because it has to be a good fit for both.
We'll be back with more of Hiring America in a moment.
Continue the conversation on our Facebook page and Twitter, and visit our website at hiringamerica.net. This week, Hiring America and the Virginia Values Veterans V3 program honors Dominion, a proud V3 company that's committed to hiring our veterans.
When I decided to go to medical school, it was a mission. I had to do well in medical school. When I join a board, I have to do enough so that the board sees I have value and they want me to stay on the board with them. When I worked as a police officer, all these jobs, it's another mission. And I look at it and say, okay, what are the risks? What are the benefits? What's the cost? What's the benefit? How much time do I have to put in? And what do I have to do to be the best at what I'm doing? That's all from the military. So think about the skills you have that others don't have when so few percentage of people actually serve in the military. You come out ahead of most people because you have that discipline. So I would say, tell your team members, don't forget those skills you have that separate you from the masses, because it really will give you a leg up on almost any position you're in.
Dr. Richard Carmona, a high school dropout, enlisted in the U.S. Army, trained as a Special Forces medic and weapons specialist, and became a combat decorated Vietnam veteran. He went on to earn degrees with highest honor, served as the 17th U.S. Surgeon General, and is now the Vice Chairman of Canyon Ranch and a member of the Clorox Company Board of Directors. We had the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Carmona at the Hiring America and Clorox Symposium in Oakland, California.
So let's start by telling us a little bit about growing up in New York City.
Well, it was a challenge at times. My parents were immigrants, and I was the oldest of four. My mom's goal was simply to get one of her kids out of school. She only meant high school because nobody in the family had ever graduated from high school. We all failed her the first time. All of us dropped out of school. And for me, the salvation, emancipating event was going into the Army when I was 17. And gave me a lot of discipline that I didn't have, taught me how to be a citizen, taught me about how to complete a mission. And so that changed my life.
And then you ended up being a decorated combat veteran. How did that feel?
So I went into the infantry, I went to jump school, I volunteered for Special Forces, and I made it, but then they told me, you can't stay because you're a high school dropout. And that forced me to get an equivalency diploma. I got a GED in the Army, then stayed in Special Forces, and got to see the world and got promoted and had positions of responsibility, went to combat and saw the inequities of war and all those challenges, and so I really matured a great deal in just a few years.
How did that experience shape you, both professionally and personally?
It really helped me to understand the responsibility of being a citizen in a democracy, that you take on lots of different missions. And as a young soldier, I did certain things. As I got more senior and took on the mission, wherever that mission happened to be, recognizing that you represent the United States of America in everything that you do. And so you mature with that, and you get to see different cultures, and you get to see different people. By the time I was 21, I think I felt like I was about 40 with all of the experiences that I had, and yet it made me a better person.
And how did that help in your transition into the civilian workforce when you decided to make that transition?
Well, most of the jobs I've had in my whole life are based on the training I got in the military. So I was in Army Special Forces. I was a medical and a weapons specialist on a Special Forces team. But then as I went into the Reserve Forces and went to school, the only reason I got into college when I was, after return from my first combat tour, and my team was telling me, you should go to college, but I knew I couldn't get in. What saved me was two high school counselors that had followed me even as I left, because when I dropped out of high school several times, they'd always saw potential in me I didn't see in myself. But the reason I got in, those counselors kept tracking me, and they didn't give up on me, and they called and found a junior college in the city that had open enrollment for combat veterans. Otherwise, I couldn't have gotten in. So none of us make it on our own. And on a team, like on our Special Forces team, we are all inextricably tied together. Our lives depend on each other in remote areas. And so there's no heroes on the team. Every mission is completed by the team, not by an individual.
Did you have a good role model early in your career?
I would say the best role model I had was my mom. She said the most important thing that she owned was her library card because it connected her to the world. And she'd go to the library every day and bring home books. She had amazing insight. She never gave up on her kids. She was all about dignity and discipline, as poor as we were. And so I would say she was probably my best mentor.
Did you ever encounter a situation where you felt like you had to break through the so-called glass ceiling in the workplace?
When you come into basic training and you get to your first assignment there, you meet a drill sergeant. That drill sergeant doesn't care what color you are, if you're rich or poor. But a couple of months later, you come out and you have a whole different view of the world. You're disciplined, you're focused, you know how to complete a mission, you understand your duty and obligation as a citizen. And so those skills then continue to move you forward. And so there's less of a glass ceiling, if you will, in the military because you continue to ascend based on your core competencies, your productivity, your leadership. And they teach you leadership in such a way that it's ingrained.
What advice would you have for a service member who's struggling with trying to figure out what their next step is?
So I think for any of those folks who are struggling, there's so many organizations. The VFW is a great organization that helps our veterans. There's American Legion, there's Disabled American Veterans, all of those. And almost all of us who have come through the military, you have teammates that you still keep in touch with. My Special Forces class, there's about 15 of us still above ground, and we're as close as we are today as we were decades ago because those bonds are, when you serve in combat and you serve together, there's a brotherhood that's committed that if I needed something today, no matter where they are, they'd get on a plane and come to me, as I would do for them.
What advice would you have for veterans interested in transitioning into a job here at the Clark's Company?
It is a fantastic company. It is just a wonderful place to work. They're very sensitive to all of the things that are important in the world today. There's great opportunity to advance, and really it's all of the values and principles you've learned in the military. You get to come to a place like this in Clorox and continue to move and be a leader.
This was a pleasure for me. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Pleasure to see you. Thank you very much.
We'll be back with more of Hiring America in a moment.
Hi, I'm Patrick Murphy, Iraq War veteran and the Undersecretary of the Army. Every year, over 100,000 troops transition out of the military. Finding a job in a civilian workforce, it can be challenging. Our service members, they're civic assets, and they need your help in finding employment. If you or someone you know is going through a transition, please share this valuable information. Army strong and proud to be a soldier for life.
Prepare for transition early. Finding meaningful employment can be a full-time job. We want to make sure you are prepared. Our Deal Well Employment Workshop curriculum is now available in a free ebook on Amazon, and you can also find it on our website. Our curriculum will help you develop a job search plan, create effective resumes and cover letters, and learn tips for successful interviews. Whether you transitioned out of uniform recently or whether it's been decades, Deal Well Vets is here to help.
Get over industry stereotypes. Look at all opportunities with an open mind. For example, not everyone is a truck driver in the transportation industry. They also have positions in human resources, logistics, supply management, security, information technology, and intelligence, to name a few.
Consider entrepreneurship opportunities. The Small Business Administration offers substantial resources to transitioning soldiers and families that are considering starting their own businesses through the Boots to Business program conducted on installations around the world. Find additional, often free business assistance from SBA and its local resource partners at sba.gov/local resources.
This Veteran Employer Transition Tip brought to you by USAA, a proud supporter of America's military, serving veterans since 1922.
You really have to begin thinking about how to serve that particular audience, the military spouse community. 60% of our employees are on the phone every single day with our members, serving their financial needs and answering their questions and taking care of insurance or whatever that is. The call center environment is very difficult, but military spouses have walked that walk. They know that experience, and who better to have on the phone with one of your members than someone who's experienced that, who's been through that challenge of deployment or PCS move or whatever it might be.
And my wife is the one that has handled the 15+ moves that we made in 22 years. She found the school district, she found the doctor, she found everything to make our life run over and over and over. Is that on a resume? Absolutely not. But if you sit down and talk to these spouses, the talent that they bring is phenomenal.
We're actually looking at building spouse-specific programs that will allow us to hire spouses. We'll train them in that particular region, and then they stay there. They don't come to the home office. They don't go to one of our regional offices. They work right out of their home, and sometimes that could be the military quarters on the installation. And when their husband or their wife or significant other PCSs, the job goes with them.
So please don't overlook them. And I would say just look at how your company defines veterans. We say it's service members, their spouses, and their families.
We'll be back with more of Hiring America in a moment.
I am so proud to work for the Home Depot. I am proud to represent this company. I bleed orange, and what that means to me is that this company is my family, and they have a commitment to me, but they also have a commitment to that you have a great career, that we give back to our communities, we give back to our veterans, we give back to our associates and our customers, and I would just encourage you to please think about the Home Depot for your next career opportunity.
Thanks for watching. The information we've just shared is all on our website, hiringamerica.net. Log on and find out about more companies who are hiring veterans. And don't forget to connect with us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, where you can find helpful tips and watch full episodes of the show. I'm Lauren Wanko. Join us again next week for another episode of Hiring America.